thank you. We're so excited to have you here, and I'm personally so excited. I have been a huge fan of yours for a long time, and I'm really excited to catch up. When we talked the other day, you were telling me about last week, I think it was, that you joined the McDonald's protest.
Yes, right? I work with the A.C.L.U. and as well as with Time's Up, and they asked me to get involved. There are about 25 women across the country, and even one in England, I believe, but in this country, 25 in different states that don't know each other, all who have complained about a lot of sexual harassment at McDonald's. And this has been going on. They had a national walkout last year as well, and nothing has really been done about it. And so we decided to protest outside of McDonald's headquarters, which it actually says Hamburger University, and go to Chicago 2 days before the shareholders meeting. And we didn't announce it, nobody knew I was going to be there, but 2 days before I went, which was a Tuesday, I got a letter sent to me from the CEO of McDonald's, which was slightly intimidating. I was like, is this going to be a Karen Silkwood situation? That's not funny, but I was really genuinely intimidated. And then I thought, well, if I don't go, I'm going to feel like a coward, right? And I wanted to go. I thought it was atrocious, the stories I read. And before I went, I read all of the court documents, the EEOC complaints. It's horrible stuff. Let's be frank, in the privacy of this room, like if you're working at McDonald's, you don't have a lot of employment options. And even the women who spoke out were retaliated against, were reassigned to a farther away McDonald's. Some of them don't have cars. It's just horrible stuff. And so in this 3-page letter from the CEO, Mr. Easterbrook, literally addressed Dear Miss Lakshmi, which is clearly, I think, written by a combination of lawyers and PR people, enumerating all of the things that they were doing. That they had a third-party hotline, they were working with RAINN, they have a new sexual harassment policy that they have reprinted 14,000 posters for, which they've mailed to every McDonald's location, and that they have, a training program. That is optional, by the way. But, I was like, all of that is good, but that's all for the victims. What about for the perpetrators? There was nothing in there that said language, no language that said like accountability, responsibility, demotion, suspension, proper investigation, none of it. There were no repercussions for people who were, if they were investigated and found guilty of this stuff, there was no mechanism for what would happen to them. So there was no deterrent. And, these cases haven't gone to trial, and I don't know if these women, it's mostly women, are telling the truth or not. But I do know if 25 different women who don't know each other across the country are telling the same story in different ways and are reporting the same thing, there's a pattern of behavior that is a problem and really needs to be addressed. And McDonald's positions itself as this wholesome company, you deserve a break today, Happy Meals. I think they say that they can't control it because 90% of their McDonald's restaurants are franchise-owned, and so they employ those people. But, we don't know that. Nobody knows that. It's McDonald's. They invented fast food. They do these commercials like, come here with your family, with, all this stuff. And they even specify to their franchises what kind of pickle they can use and in what pattern they can go on your burger. So, like, if you can specify how to treat a pickle, surely you can goddamn well specify how to be, respectful of your colleague or subordinate,
Padma, you're one of many people who, in the last couple of years, have changed and gotten really activist, much more engaged in this political and cultural movement. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you moved from being a writer and a television personality, a model, into that space of being an activist. What was it that triggered that, and in your life, in the society, that made you take that step to really go out and protest with people?
I think it was a progression. I don't think it happened overnight. I suffered from a gynecological disorder that I wasn't diagnosed with until I was 36. I had endometriosis. And once I got the proper treatment I needed and I was on the other side of that pain and I saw what life was like for someone who didn't have that illness, I was relieved. But then I was angry because there is treatment out there. It's not covered by a lot of insurance unless you wind up in the hospital. And then, you know, they're trying to take our birth control away, which, other than surgery, is the only way we now know to take care of endometriosis. And then, you know, my niece, I wasn't even a mother then, but my niece started showing the same symptoms, and I just didn't want her to go through the bullshit that I went through. There's a lot of misogyny in, you know, all parts of our culture, but also in medicine. You know, if you are a gynecological surgeon, sometimes you don't have the instruments you need, but if you're an orthopedist or a proctologist, there's plenty of room for you. So it's in insidious ways that are subtle and not so subtle. You know, it's changing very well, but like if you turn on the TV tonight and watch some primetime television, you will see 3 or 4 different ads for different types of erectile dysfunction drugs. But you won't see anything about any gynecological condition. And by the way, insurance also covers that Viagra, but it doesn't necessarily cover your birth control. You know, so it was things like this that I started noticing. And then, you know, it was very hard to talk about this illness because it had to do with my period, it had to do with my body. And, you know, I'm pretty cool with it now, but it's not that easy to get up and talk about your vagina in front of strangers. But somebody had to do it. And so I was like, here we go. And we all came out of one, by the way. So, you know, I don't understand why there's this big taboo. And then, you know, from there, the election happened, and I just found that there was so much wrong. And I think really becoming a mother, I thought for me was my good karma for starting the foundation, because I was told I couldn't have kids. And which is funny because I tried all my life not to have a kid, and little did I know I didn't need to do that. But I'm lucky I have a kid. And so from there, I started working with the A.C.L.U, really. And, you know, I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 4. My mother's a nurse. She came here with literally $100 in her pocket. And now, you know, I'm in my 40s. I pay a shit ton of taxes. I'm a good citizen. I'm a good person, and like immigrants are valuable, and I think they made this country. And so when I saw what was happening to immigrants at our borders and family separation and all that, I couldn't not say anything. So I started to become really vocal. We did the first town hall in the A.C.L.U's 100-year history in Florida, and I started speaking at that. And I was really nervous, I'll be honest. Like, I was the only one speaking at that who wasn't a human rights lawyer, and I just didn't feel like I had the authority to say anything. But slowly, I spent a lot of time with these lawyers who are really heroes. I know you don't think of lawyers as like superheroes, but they really are. And I got very close to one of the country's foremost immigration lawyers and their team, and I learned about it. And it's atrocious. And I can't blame Trump for it, because honestly, it's worse now, but it was going on before Trump. We have to, you know, call a spade a spade. So it was that, and then because of the inequality I saw in healthcare, it motivated me to work on women's rights issues with the A.C.L.U. I'm their ambassador for immigration, but I also work with them on women's rights. And then when the Me Too movement happened, I had the good fortune to meet a lot of their, you know, legal experts too. And so this McDonald's thing was a joint effort by Time's Up, by Fight for 15, and by the A.C.L.U. And now I think it's going to be, you know, a class action suit. And hopefully something will be done about it. But honestly, like, I don't want my hamburger at the, I mean, I would never go to McDonald's anyway, but let's be clear.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Who are we kidding? But if I had to use it, if I had to use a bathroom, I might have to squat on the side of the road now. But, you know, we have a choice. Like, who wants to eat a hamburger at the price of someone's dignity? And the idea of putting up a silly poster when you have to go to work and go right to work at the grill is insane. And I don't know why Easterbrook is writing to me. I don't work for McDonald's. He should be speaking and meeting directly with these women, hearing their stories. To this day, to my knowledge, to this day, even after like all the news reports of our protests and stuff, and the beautiful love letter that he wrote to me, he still hasn't met with these women. Why not? You know, if a problem is occurring in your house, it is for you to clean up.
I want to pick up on something that you said, two things that you said. You said that when you got Easterbrook's letter, you felt intimidated by it, and that when you were thinking about
what?
That you felt intimidated when you got the letter.
Oh, yes, I did.
And then also you said that when you were thinking about joining the A.C.L.U. in the beginning, the first movement, that you were nervous about it. I just want to ask you kind of personally, like, I don't think of you as somebody who gets nervous or who gets intimidated, but it's good to know. What do you do? How do you face up to your nervousness
I'm nervous
and your
right
intimidation?
now.
Well, that music was intimidating.
Yeah. Hard to live up to that
So
music.
what's your strategy? What do you do to get ready for something? How do you face the camera? How do you face the...
That's a hard question. I mean, it depends on the instance, of course. I mean, now I've been doing my show for 13 years. I'm, blessed to have a successful show. But I think I'm always a little intimidated when I do something new, whatever it is, because I think, like many women, I suffer from bouts of imposter syndrome. And I think as women, we do, or any marginalized community, we do suffer from that. And then because we're insecure, we don't want to talk about how insecure we are, And so my only antidote to that anxiety is to try and prepare in whatever way I'm able to. But, it's just, you got to remember why you're doing it. I mean, in the case of being in front of the camera or doing Top Chef or modeling, it was literally to pay my rent, So hunger supersedes anxiety sometimes. But when it's a case like this, like, I've been lucky enough to be a parent, and I've been lucky enough to have a good life now that I've earned with hard work and tenacity. But I also know how unequal it is for certain people to achieve the same level as other people because of circumstances that are not of their doing or in their control. And I think there's a through line to the things that I've become involved in, that it's always about some kind of inequity. Also, like, I also work with the United Nations Development Program, and there too, like, we're looking at poverty, but many of the reasons for poverty or inequality in third world countries or first world countries is the culture. It's not because there's no fruit to eat. It's that the culture thinks that first the man should be fed. And I think first the children should be fed. I think first all children should go to school. But I'm not, that's not what people think of in certain parts of Afghanistan. So you have to change the culture, and you have to change the mindset and get people to see that winning without equality isn't really a win. We teach children that, right? We say, don't cheat when you're playing Monopoly. It's not, it's not really yours to win. But we need to remind adults of that. And I think that's kind of what propels me. Plus, I like the music. I like the music.
One of the other through lines in your life, of course, is food. And it's the sort of foundation of a lot of your career. And it's interesting that now even the McDonald's protest is, related to the restaurant industry. Can you talk a little bit about how food is sort of an organizing principle in your life, and why food, and how it connects to some of the other issues that you care about?
Sure. I mean, for me, I think in terms of food. So, my family is I grew up in a family where we're clearing the dishes for lunch, and we're already, kind of plotting what we're going to make for dinner. It's, very common. And also, I think food, like
Are there families that aren't like that?
I don't know. Yes, I'm sure. But, I think food, like religion, or different affiliations, brings people together. It is something that we bond over. If you look at all of the rituals of our society, whether it's death or marriage, courtship, or power breakfast, a business lunch, a dinner date, whatever, it's all done over food. It's all done over something that's and it ties into my work actually with immigration, because the thing that immigrants hold on to most is their food. It's comforting, it reminds them of home. It's the thing that they can always bring with them, the food knowledge. And I think that food is one of the few areas, New York and North America, we are at the epicenter of fine dining and whatever's in the zeitgeist. It's not Paris, it's not London, it's not Hong Kong, it's really North America and New York. In food, things usually in other sectors trickle down from the high end to the low end. Like, you'll see a great piece of art and then next season you'll see it on a Zara t-shirt or something like it. In food, it's the opposite. It's all these little mom and pop immigrant places, the Thai takeout, the Greeks who run the Italian restaurant, whatever it is. And that becomes popular, and then, because it's also the cheaper food. So it's the common food. And then people ask for that, and suddenly you see sriracha in grocery stores where you would have only seen Heinz ketchup. Then you see all these other things. And so, I think food is a great jumping off point for anything, because you need two things in life to survive. You need food for your body and love for your soul. And I think those two things are also very connected for me.
That's great. So I interviewed you about 10 years ago for a column we do in the New York Times called Sunday Routine. And one of the things that you said at the time was that, I think you were talking about your workouts on Sundays, and I think you said something about, and you've said it in another context too, about how every year on the show you'll eat whatever you need to eat on the show, and then you diet for some period of time to get back to the size that you need to be. And I was just struck by that, thinking about you and this kind of incredibly strong feminist career that you've built and persona as you've been speaking out, and yet you're this incredibly beautiful woman whose career started in modeling, and your look is a big part of your persona, at least on television. And I just wonder how that plays out, to be an incredibly beautiful woman whose career has to do with her looks, and also talking about issues of independence and strength for women.
Can we have that music back? That's a great question. I try not to be too long-winded, but I'm the only person in my extended family who doesn't have a graduate degree. And I started modeling after my theater degree, and I had a lot of guilt about it, especially when I made more in one day than my mother, who's an MPH, made in 3 months. And I think there's an injustice to that. And I think it's no mistake that the beauty industry for women is, billions and billions of dollars. Having said that, it's because of my modeling career that I was able to travel the world, try different foods, build on the knowledge I have, write the books that I did, get the show, be able to donate to the charities of my choice, etc. What was your question?
What's it like to be beautiful?
What's it like? I'm sorry. I'm not going to say it's hard. Beauty, let's be honest, right? Beauty is an asset, like anything else, like being, having a talent, or being an Olympic athlete, or, being born into a wealthy family. It is an asset, like it or not. And that comes with its pros, and that comes with its cons. And I think, also television is a visual medium, so it's hard. But then, people are much more focused on my appearance than they are on Tom Colicchio's, who is our head judge. Like, nobody asks him how he loses weight, right? He eats the same food that I do. But I think it is because I came from a background of modeling. And then also, when you are attractive and then you get singled out in your work, which, leaving aside the modeling, has not necessarily much to do with the way you look, but it's hard to separate that out for me. You wonder, like, am I being favorited because of the way I look? And I think what happened to me early on, even in Top Chef, by the time I did Top Chef, I was co-hosting a show on national television in Italy. I started my TV career in Italian in Italy. And then I had done a couple of shows on the Food Network. But I felt like, because Top Chef was the sister show to Project Runway, and they had put a model in that hosting position, which made sense because it's a fashion show, that people would assume I just got the job because I, was that. But I had already written a book on food by then. I was writing for the New York Times, actually. And so I didn't feel that way, but I felt that everybody else felt that way about me. And the reason the McDonald's thing is really important to me is because food is one of the most male-dominated professions around. The only thing more male-dominated is probably the military. And so the sexual abuse and the inequality is so rampant. And because there's a low point of entry, it's also very immigrant-filled, but because there's a low point of entry, you know, you're starting off with dishwashers, you're starting out with all these kinds of people who may not have the education to make sure that they behave in an equal and respectful way. That's the easiest way I can say it. So it did bother me. And then one day I just decided, you know, I am who I am and I can't change that, because I'm not going to negate my own sexuality or my sensuality to be taken seriously, because I take myself seriously. And it took me a long time to do that, you know.
I forgot to give you guys a warning, but we do have a couple of minutes for questions from you. So I was going to warn you and let you prepare, but
So think fast.
I didn't. We literally have like not a lot of time. Does anyone? Shout out questions. Should I keep going? I could ask one more question.
Well, the thing you were talking about is like, you know, to be beautiful or not. I think we are harder on women than we are on men, like because of what makes a woman attractive. An intelligent woman isn't attractive to everybody. It's threatening. And I think that an attractive man becomes more attractive as he ascends in his career. And, you know, a woman is not necessarily that way. And so we put women in different boxes, our society. We are trained to do this in a million ways. You know, I'm sure I teach my child things that if they were pointed out to me, I would be horrified about, you know, because it's so ingrained in the very water we drink. So like we're happy to have, you know, the woman who does the lingerie campaign and, you know, is pretty and is light or whatever. And then we're happy to have the academic or the feminist or the truck driver, but all those things can't coexist in one woman. And I have seen all those things coexist in many men and women, but I'm saying we accept that as a culture more easily. And I think that has to change. Like the education of our young, you're not going to ever make things equal by talking to adults. You're only going to remedy the situation in slow increments, hopefully before we kill ourselves with the environment, by, sorry to be such a downer, I know I came at dessert, but you know, we have to teach our 4-year-olds, our 3-year-olds, we have to teach them a language to stick up for themselves too. And I think that's why a lot of sexual abuse happens, because it happens at a much younger age than we give our children the language to immediately brush it off before it gets too close. And you know, when it happened to me at 7, at 16, I didn't have the language to see it coming and know that that's what it was and stop it or say no, you know, in whatever language was appropriate for my age at the time. And so I'm thinking we need to train both our boys and girls when we train them, you know, when we potty train them, when we teach them to say, you know, thank you and please. We teach our boys to be strong and brave and go after what you want and never give up. And we teach our girls to be nice and polite and, you know, get along. And so you are, you know, these two genders are going out into the world with different set of rules to the same game. So I think that's wrong.
Maybe we could end with this. Can you tell us something about how you talk to your daughter, Krishna, either how you explain what you're doing when you're like going off to do the McDonald's protest, or how you talk to her about
the McDonald's protest was funny. I actually tweeted this. You know, I wanted to go and come home in the same day so I could be home with her. And I got home like at 8:30 at night, and I was too tired to shower, so I just scrubbed my makeup off, and I got in bed with her, and she goes, Mom, you smell like fried food. I said, well, I was in front of Hamburger University, and she said, Mom, you smell like harassment nuggets. Which I thought was brilliant. I couldn't have said anything wittier than that. But I do talk to Krishna. I talk to Krishna, probably because it happened to me that I'm so vigilant about it. I mean, I don't believe in sleepaway camp, but that's also an immigrant thing. Like, I told her, like, if she wants to sleep away from home, she needs to get into college. Like, I'm happy for other people to come and sleep over, and we have a guest room. Their parents can stay too. But but when I sent her to preschool, and I remember walking her, to her school, and I tell her this every September, so much now. She goes, I know, Mom, I know. But I tell her, like, if anyone touches you in your privates or makes you touch them in their privates, you don't have to. I don't care if they're related to mommy or daddy, a friend, a doctor, principal, nurse, anybody. Your body is your own. And unless there's a truck that someone is trying to get you away, from being hit with, you have the right to say no, go, and you tell someone. And mommy will never be mad at you, even if you misunderstood, never. And I think we have to do that in all sorts of situations so that, young girls and young boys, because by the way, it happens to young boys all the time. I mean, look at what happened to the Boy Scouts. I mean, that is a horrific thing. In all these Boy Scouts, Catholic Church, I mean, any big organization, there's systemic hiding of the perpetration, and so it compounds. I think you have to arm our children with understanding what's right and what's wrong, and that they have a right to expect respect. And I think that's what you have to do. You can't wait to, people wait to have the birds and the bees talk at, whatever age. Like you have to have it every day in little increments. And it was really hard. I wrote an op-ed in the Times in September about something I hadn't really even talked to my own mother about. I was raped. That's how I lost my virginity when I was 16. I never told anybody. I thought I told my therapist, which I think is what I wrote in the article. I fact-checked it. I hadn't even told her. I said, are you sure? She said, I think I would remember that. But, I had to tell my daughter. And my daughter at the time was 8. And because I didn't want someone else to tell her. And I just used it as a teaching moment. Some of the most painful things are also some of the most valuable things that you can use to teach younger people around you that, a lesson you're trying to hit home. And to say to my daughter, look, I know you think mommy's really strict, but it happened to me and I don't ever want it to happen to you. Because once you steal that purity and that innocence away, you leave that person with an anxiety and a self-doubt that they maybe caused it upon themselves by their behavior for the rest of their lives. You leave them with a lack of confidence that is so visceral that it's devastating. And I don't want that to happen to my daughter. I don't want it to happen to anybody's daughter or son.